Introductions. So my name is Alex Wessner, as you can see on the Zoom screen. What I do with NC State is I basically work on the Raleigh side of NC State Prague operations. We're a two-person team, and what we do effectively is work with students at the early stages of program participation. So when they're inquiring about it, have questions to the point where they're applying, to the point where they're maybe getting more involved and then preparing them for departure. So we sort of work in what we call the pre-departure phase, leading up to when students go abroad to Prague, at which point we sort of hand you off, so to speak, to our great staff in Prague. And the other part of the we, I'll pass it over to our great program coordinator, Maggie, to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Maggie Agnew. Like Alex said, I'm the other half of the Raleigh team, but I am a program coordinator, so I help coordinate a lot of the pre-departure activities before sending all of the students to Prague. So yeah, that's kind of what I do. Also wanted to point out we do have, I believe Keely's not with us just yet, but we have some alums that are joined us for tonight. Later on, we'll have a student panel where we'll get to hear a little bit more from them about their experience. But wanted to highlight them. And if y'all just wanted to briefly just say your name, your major, when you did the program, and then we can move on. But yeah, I wanted to highlight them as well.
Okay, I can go first. My name is Sanjana. I studied abroad in Prague almost 2 years ago, so fall of 2022, and I'm currently studying business administration with a minor in animal science.
All right, hey everyone, my name's Jenna Bruce. I studied in Prague last fall, and I'm currently still in exploratory studies, but I'm hoping to go into fashion and textile management.
And Keely should join us a little bit later. If she's not on here already, I apologize. If you are on here, we got quite a number of people. But she was also part of our Prague Connect program last year, and she's a biochemistry major. So hopefully she'll join us in a little bit. But we'll pull them back in a little bit later. So
Great. Thanks, Maggie. And for folks who maybe joined late, just a reminder, we'll have time at the end for any questions that you may have. So we're going to kind of roll through the presentation portion of this. So it's going to be a few slides and information that Maggie and I will talk about. And it makes sense to start off, first of all, with the NC State European Center. So this is basically the location where you would be on this program. First of all, what is the European Center? The simple way to think about this is it's an extension of NC State University's campus. So on this program, and any of our study abroad programs, it's not that we're sending you off to go take classes at another university that we have a partnership with, or sending you off to some third party to kind of figure things out. This is effectively NC State's campus. These are our classes. These are our programs. So it's pretty unique. In our facility, you can see in the top picture there, that yellow building, we have a beautiful historic building where you would take classes, and we'll take a look inside in a little bit. But that's what the outside looks like. If anyone on this call has ever been to Prague, you may have passed this knowingly or unknowingly. It's in this really beautiful historic part of the city. It's off of the main Old Town Square, and it's right along a route between the main Old Town Square and the Charles Bridge. So those are two, if you don't know what that is, two major points of attraction in the city. So we're right in that route in this beautiful, beautiful location. It still sort of blows my mind that the university does have a foothold in the heart of this wonderful city. So again, NC State's campus. We've basically been sending students there since the 90s. This started out as a College of Design initiative and has just grown and grown since to become a university-wide thing with more programs, more student participation, and to the point where we are today of sending over 200 students per calendar year. And in fact, by next year, we'll have to update that to probably over 300 students. So our programs in Prague are just becoming more and more popular, and that holds true for the Connect program as well. So, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Just more in the center though. So this building has basically all the spaces you need to support your academic life. So that's where you'll take your classes. This is where you have places like little libraries, computer lab, our staff offices are there. We have student social spaces, a lounge, things like that. So it all takes place in what we call the European Center in that building. So there's a lot to it, and we can take a little quick mini tour right now. This here is an example of one of our classrooms. So we have a handful of different classrooms, and a lot of them look kind of like this. So you're in a small room, there's small class sizes, so you get a lot of great attention with the faculty, but it's going to look something like that. Here's another space. You probably won't be in this though. This is for our upper level studio and design students. Another really cool space, what we call the chapel, multi-purpose room that we do use for class sometimes. Our mini library, outdoor lounge, student lounge, and kitchen space. And so there's a lot more to this. We just want to give you a sample of some of the rooms. But again, you'll be in this building quite a bit. And there's a lot of beautiful and cool spaces in it. So let's talk a little bit more about the Connect program. So we do have several programs at the NC State European Center. The Connect program is just one of those, but it is probably our most interesting, most unique program because it's the only one that first-year students are allowed to participate in. And more specifically, it's not just any first-year student, but those admitted to the Spring Connect at NC State. So your eligibility basically for this program is if you've been admitted to Spring Connect and that you eventually confirm that that makes you eligible to participate in Prague Connect. So the program is 12 weeks, 84 days to be exact. You would arrive in Prague on August 28th, and we would get you back home in time for Thanksgiving. So it ends on November 20th. So again, 12 weeks long, and that whole time you're in Prague. And there's also some trips and activities planned, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So during this time, if you're wondering what I'm not going to be admitted to NC State in the spring, what is my status when I'm taking classes in the fall? And so what we do is we register you as what we call non-degree seeking students. And you may have heard of this already, NDS students. And so what that means effectively is while you're not officially enrolled in a degree program, you are still taking classes that when you do enter your degree program, when you matriculate in the spring, those classes that you've taken with us in Prague will then count towards your degree when you start officially on the Raleigh campus in spring 2025. What that also means, importantly, and we'll talk about this, we'll emphasize this throughout, but that means that the classes you do take count and they're graded. And so whatever you do score in those, whatever your grades are, those factor into your final cumulative GPA at NC State. So we do expect you to take those seriously, of course. So you're taking a full load of credits, and we'll look in a second at what those classes are. We do have program activities built throughout. We start you out with an orientation, of course, to get you comfortable, informed about your new environment, your new setting. And we set expectations, get you to meet staff, each other, show you around, get you familiar with the housing, which we'll look at in a bit too. Cultural activities, as I mentioned, and excursions are part of the program. We do have those one in-country trip planned and one out-of-country trip planned, which we'll talk about later. But those are all built into the program. Everyone goes in them. They're a lot of fun, and they're included in your program cost. During the fall, we do run another one of our programs. We call this our classic program. It's sort of our standard regular program. So you'll be there as well with other NC State students in that classic program. So you'll see them a lot. These are upperclassmen. They're basically in the same facility as you, in the same housing for the most part. So you do get to interact with students, sophomores, juniors, seniors as well. So you kind of start to sort of get that university life, where it's not just your class, but you have older students there as well, which is very helpful for kind of getting transitioned into university life. Some fun facts about the Connect program. We started this program in 2017. So this will be the 7th year. We started out with, I think, about 15 students in our first class. And last year we had 36. So it's steadily been growing over the years. And we've had about over 150 students all throughout that are considered our Connect alums. So for this year, 2024, we're aiming, if you're curious, we're aiming to have at least 36 students. We have capacity for that and a little bit more. So it could probably be in the range of 36 to 48 is probably the max we can take. So that's what we're looking at for program numbers. So as I mentioned, classes. So when you participate on the Connect program, it's a little bit different than when you're going to be here in Raleigh picking your classes, in the sense that you have a preset schedule. So we have basically what we call tracks, 3 different track possibilities for you. And you get to state your preference during the application process, which we'll talk about later, for what track you want. Now, these tracks pretty much, and you'll notice as I go through the slides here and show you what the courses are, but they have this pretty much the same 3 classes, and then there's a couple that are a little bit different. So this first track we call International Studies, and the unique courses in this track will actually be the European Politics course. And so you would basically be enrolled in that in addition to the Transition into a Diverse Community, which is a required class to help you adjust to university and social life at NC State. It's a week-long course. We'll talk about that later a little bit more, but that's just a short class. But you do a Czech culture and language, along with a physics course, stellar and galactic astronomy with a lab, and a sociology class. So that's track 1. Track 2 is pretty much exactly the same, except instead of taking the European Politics class, you're taking a biology course. And we label this track science. So the same 4 classes, except you're taking, again, the introductory biology instead of the European Politics. Track 3 is actually a new track that we're introducing for 2024, and we're really excited about. So it has 2 different classes. So you're still in the transition class. That's a requirement for everybody. You're still in the Czech culture class, and you're also taking the Principles of Sociology course. The 2 classes that are unique are a business course, so it's Introduction to Business Processes, and a philosophy class, Contemporary Moral Issues. So both those classes fulfill what's referred to as the Humanities GEP category. And if you're wondering what does GEP mean, that's General Education Program. So when you're at NC State, every student, regardless of major, has to fulfill and meet a certain number of credit hours in each general education program category. And so when we've been going through these slides, you'll see in the GEP column which class fulfills which category, okay? So that's really important as you go forward and plan out your degree progress to kind of track which ones you still need. But basically, when you're in Prague, you're not taking wasted courses. You're going to take classes that will eventually count towards those GEP categories that you need to graduate. Okay, so again, 3 tracks, what we call International Studies, Science, and Business. So really excited about that. Again, just to restate the point, these are tracks that we get your preferences on. That doesn't necessarily mean that's a guarantee you get those tracks. We try to accommodate those preferences as best we can. But during the application process, you'll see in the questionnaires a place where you can indicate your preference, okay? And so all of you'll be split up evenly across the tracks, but that gives you a sense of what you'll be taking. So we're really excited about that. Again, these are all NC State classes that will all eventually count towards your degrees. Yeah, so with that, I'm going to pass it over to Maggie so we can hear some from our alums.
Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to take this opportunity to bring in our alums to talk a little bit about their experience with academics with the NC State Prague, the Connect program. So Sanjana, Keely, and Jenna, if y'all want to just kind of talk briefly about maybe some of the courses, which courses that you took, perhaps what a typical day at with the Connect program looked like how many classes you were taking a day, that sort of thing. And then possibly if you can touch on your the ability you had to balance your coursework with outside activities, like if you did any personal traveling or things like that. So whoever wants to start first, they can. But yeah, if y'all want to talk about those things.
Okay, I can go first. So I went into the second track, so the science track with biology as the different class. So for the most part, if I remember right, the classes were like basically 2 classes one day, then the 2 classes the next day, and you'd alternate Mondays and Tuesdays and then Wednesday and Thursday. And Fridays we didn't have classes, so that actually gave a lot of people like the time to travel to different countries. So a lot of people did do that. But when I took the biology track, we did have a lab course that came with it. So that's why the class was 4 credits instead of 3. And with the lab course that came with it, at the time, there was a lab instructor who taught at a university near the airport, I believe. So that was once a week, I think on like the Monday or Wednesday of the week. And she was like really great. I don't know if she was still teaching just because she had like conflicting schedules or something, but if that's like still a thing, it's still really nice because you do get to go to a different side of Prague that does have actual university students as well. So the environment's really nice. But again, like the classes were really fun and engaging because they're still really small based on the numbers of students they're admitting. There's like roughly 12 people, including yourself, in a class, so it's still really small. You get to have that professor-student interaction really easily. Everyone is really tight and close in the class, so oftentimes we share notes and study together. So it's really like accommodating and it's really easy, so it's not like too stressful. I'd say the professors are also really, really nice. And I really enjoyed like working with them as well. They're really communicative and just great people to learn from as well. So I think they're like really open to anything and do like to like if you want to learn anything from them or just want to even talk to them, they're really friendly as well.
Yeah, I was also on the biology track, so the science track. So along with everything she said with the course schedule and I was a year later, but we also did do that lab at a university near the airport. Um, it was it was pretty easy to balance coursework with personal traveling. I ended up traveling to 4 different countries. But definitely don't underestimate it. They're very nice teachers, and if you talk to them, they're willing to help you with almost anything. And I'd say the course load is very manageable. It's a good way to transition into full-time coursework here at NC State. And overall, I did really enjoy the classes. I learned a lot from them, and we even got to go on an extra biology excursion, which was really cool. Um, yeah, definitely very, very interesting classes.
Yeah, so I too was on the science track. We did get to, each track has their own excursion dependent on what classes you're taking. So ours was the science, of course. A lot of my friends did track 1, but the coursework throughout all the classes are fairly manageable, like everyone else was saying. Um, Different from normal classes here, most of the assignments are due towards the end of the semester, which really sneaks up on you if you don't try to manage that. But it also gives you plenty of time because there's no classes on Fridays and you have plenty of weekends available to travel and explore either Czech Republic, or what my friends and I did is we went to 10 different countries and we got to see all over Europe, and it was the best experience. I was hesitant because of the courses because I have my associates already, but these GEPs are still very interactive, and it's very different when you take a gap semester. So going into these classes, even if you have those credits, it's still really nice being able to transition and meet different students that you'll have a connection with going into North Carolina State instead of just coming in as a fresh meat.
That's great. Thank y'all for those responses. That's wonderful. I didn't realize that all of y'all were in science, but science represent. That's great. But now we can move on. Alex, if you want to go. Yeah. So just to talk kind of briefly about some of the activities and excursions that you would be a part of with this program. So Alex mentioned kind of almost all of these, kind of touched on all of these. So I'll delve into them briefly. But first and foremost, students will take part in our on-site orientation. And this is kind of some of it is a repeat of what we'll go over at the Connect on-site orientation, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But some of it will be new as well. We'll also talk about transitioning from Raleigh to Prague, what culture shock looks like, resources, all that kind of stuff. So it's really good orientation. We do that the day after arrival. So we kind of, students will dive right into that after arrival. But orientation not only includes the sit down portion, which is pretty standard presentation like we're doing now, but we also try to incorporate some city and public transportation tours. So that way students get a better idea of the city that they're going to be in for the next couple of months, how to navigate, between the streets, some good sites to see also along the way. And then also just how to navigate public transportation. As part of the program, included in the program cost is an in-city transportation pass. So students will definitely be using public transportation during the duration of the semester. So a good way to learn how to use the bus, how to use the metro or the subway, as well as the tram, which is one of the more popular ways to travel around Prague. And like Alex mentioned, there's the Czech language course that students will take part in as well, to kind of give them a background of the language. Not necessarily that students need it to survive while in Prague. It's a very metropolitan city, so English is widely spoken. So it's not difficult to get around, but good to have some phrases in your back pocket in case you maybe go outside of Prague and you go to some smaller towns, or if you're curious and want to know how to order in Czech at a restaurant, or if you want to talk to locals and things like that. So aside from that, we do have some optional activities, and these are actually offered all throughout the semester. We try to offer a range of activities for different interests and preferences. Probably the most popular, and maybe our alums can talk about this more, but the cooking class is probably our most popular activity among students. This is an opportunity for students, obviously, to cook Czech food, but more importantly, to eat it and enjoy their hard work. So that's something that we offer several times throughout the week, several times throughout the semester. And then we also offer opportunities for students to see the opera or an opera while they're there, or the ballet, if that's something that they're interested in. We'll arrange tickets for those types of performances. And then some more kind of informal stuff. So for example, hiking or trekking, if being outdoors is more your thing. And then even like pick up sports games like football or tennis, things like that. So students have a variety of options throughout the semester to get involved. And then finally, these excursions. So again, Alex mentioned these already, but these are included in the program cost and mandatory as part of the program, but really enjoyable for our students, or so we've heard. So Český Krumlov is the first trip that students will go on. This happens somewhere within the first 2 weeks of the program start date, but this is a small town in Czech Republic in the south, kind of near the Austrian border. And it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So you step through and it's like a fairy tale, but students will spend a couple days there doing all sorts of different things, getting to know the town and getting to experience a different side of the Czech Republic. And then later on in the semester, students will go to Poland for about 4 to 5 days. They'll be in Krakow, mainly doing a lot of different activities there, getting to experience the culture there, and kind of see the differences between Czech Republic and Poland and just kind of Europe in general. And then some additional day trips here and there that are kind of spur of the moment. But yeah, that's just a brief overview of what students are able to get involved in outside of academics. So then moving on to student housing, this is usually a popular question. So that top picture is our main dorm building that our Connect students will be staying in. So maybe students, you'll hear it referred to as Zeitram or Cyphertova, whichever one's easiest to pronounce for you. This is the building. So for all of our rooms are, most of them are going to be dorm style. So 2 students, usually no more than that to a room. And then we have a couple of shared bathrooms between the rooms. The rooms themselves have all of the bedding and furniture included. So students, you don't have to bring any additional items with you, any bulky things like that, unless you are, attached to your pillow or a blanket or, anything that you want to bring with you. Everything is included there. You can see in that bottom right-hand picture, that's can't see the other bed. There is one in there, but there's desk space available. You've got lamp, you've got natural light in there, and then you've got kind of your own cubby space. So that's just kind of a brief look at the room itself. You can also go to our housing page on our website if you want to look more in depth at the rooms and some of the other things in the building itself. But moving on from that, though, we also have shared kitchens on each of the floors. So all of those kitchen supplies are also included as well. So you don't have to bring, any pots and pans with you if you were thinking of needing to do that. There's also usually a lot of leftover kitchen materials like salt and pepper and olive oil, that kind of stuff. So that's the kitchen situation. You also get your own personal locker. So if there's any items that you don't want to share with other students, you'll have a safe place to put that. In the bottom of the building, there are laundry facilities available for students to use. We also have Wi-Fi all throughout the building as well. So you don't have to worry about going to a coffee shop or something in order to work on any academics or, to call people or connect with family and friends back home. And then there's also 24/7 staffing and security in the building. So it is very safe. Like the center, you have key card access that allows you into the building. And it's only NC State students that are in this building. So we know who's going in and out. We have security staffing at the desk during the normal working hours, and then security will be there at night. So again, very secure. It's in a residential area of Prague, so there's a lot to do around the area as well. It's close to the major tram stop, tons of grocery stores, restaurants, coffee shops, all of that is in the area. The other note about the housing is that we have check dorm mates or local student housing assistants. You'll hear them referred to as both of those things, but they're local students that are a part of our program that live in the buildings as well, and they provide additional support to students. So if you need to know how to work the washing machine or something like that, or if you're curious about the best restaurants to go to in the area, all sorts of different questions that you could ask. That's kind of what they're there for, is to provide that resource. So Alex, if you want to go to the next page, this gives you an overview or a bird's eye view of actually where the dorm is in relation to the center. So it's a very easy commute. That's kind of the nice thing about Prague is it's not far. The places you're looking at aren't far from one another. So if you wanted to take the tram, it's about 15-20 minutes commute. Or if you wanted to walk, which some students prefer to do that, it's about 25 to 30 minutes total walking. But again, no matter where you want to go in Prague, it's all relatively close to one another. So.
All right, great. Thanks, Maggie. Yeah, so now we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about costs and finances in the money topic. Okay. So what does all this cost? So the short answer is the cost of the program of being in Prague in the fall is quite comparable to estimated expenses if you're in Raleigh for in-state tuition and living. You can see, and actually, I don't know if you can see the bottom. I think you should be able to see hopefully the bottom. There's a big a total kind of bottom line figure at the bottom. If you can't, it should be 15,745. So that's what we estimate to be the total estimated program costs, and that's sort of for everything. Now let me kind of dive a little bit deeper into what that entails. So starting from the top, these first 3 lines are the fixed costs. All right, these are things that aren't going to vary, and then the stuff below it are the variable costs. So the first 2 are like application fees, what we call the setup fee and the study abroad fee. These apply to any students applying for any study abroad program in NC State. You have to pay a setup fee, which is basically like an application fee, and then you pay a study abroad fee at the time of commitment. And so if you end up starting an application, submitting one, and paying the $75, but decide later on, hey, I can't do it, I don't want to do it, or something else has come up, you won't be on the hook for the 375 unless you've already committed at that point. But we'll talk about that timeline and what that looks like. But so just be aware, there's a couple sort of different application fees to kind of factor in. Now, the big item here, the central piece of this, is what's referred to as the NC State program cost. And so the Connect program is priced at $10,950. In the next slide, I'm going to go over what that includes, what that excludes. It's really important. But that is our program costs, and they'll make more sense here in a second. So, so that's the cost of the program. Now, there's going to be some out-of-pocket costs as well. And the biggest items, the biggest categories that are out of pocket would be the flight, so getting to Prague, getting back from Prague, and food, so flight and food, the two Fs. So we don't book flights for any of our group programs. There's a number of reasons why we don't do that, but suffice to say, you would just be responsible for booking that on your own. This, I think, a benefit of gives you some freedom to book that when you want, however you want. It doesn't matter so much to us how you get to Prague, as long as we see you there on what we call arrival day. This is the first day of the program. So you have that flexibility to book when and how you want. So that's the big expense, the biggest one out of pocket, and the $1,600 there is a rough estimate of what a round trip might cost between, say, RDU to Prague. A little spoiler, if you haven't looked already, there's unfortunately no direct flight yet from RDU to Prague. So you're going to be going through one or two other cities before you reach your destination. But yeah, so $1,600 is a rough estimate. For folks who've explored, I'm sure most of you have searched for flights, you know that there's a lot of variables in fares. So maybe one flight one day costs something different. So we want to just give the caveat that this is an estimate for flights, but a pretty reliable one. So meals, how do meals work when you're in Prague on this program? So in contrast to when you're in Raleigh, so when you get to NC State main campus here in Raleigh, it's a huge campus. There's lots of different dining facilities. You're probably going to be on a meal plan where you just swipe a card and go into the cafeteria. So that's going to be your experience when you're here in Raleigh. It's not going to be that when you're in Prague. Everything's smaller scale, and so we don't have dining facilities in the sense of cafeterias, but we do have fully furnished kitchens to support your meal, your meal like preparation. So students, for the most part, will get to the habit of buying groceries, preparing their own meals. So this might be an interesting, good learning experience if you haven't kind of delved into that too much yet. You go out to eat, some combination thereof. The point is, you're free to kind of do meals how you wish. But for 12 weeks in Prague, you definitely will be doing a lot of grocery shopping, buying food, and that's where the meal expense comes from. Sort of in general, Prague is about I don't know, it depends how you define it, about 3 times as large in terms of population than Raleigh. It's about 1.4 million people. So with a city that size, you might be thinking that the cost of living is comparably large as well compared to Raleigh. It's actually pretty even. And I think even on food, it's probably less in a lot of cases than what you pay for in Raleigh, both at the grocery store and going out to eat. So you probably maybe expecting it's going to be really expensive to live in a big city like that, but Prague is pretty inexpensive as far as a city of that size. It's not like going on, say, to London or Paris for a study abroad program. So you can kind of get by quite far with that. But all to say, there is your estimate. Again, an estimate is the key word for meals for this semester. Next line is passport. Now, this is an important point. So hopefully everyone realizes that you need a passport to go abroad. And hopefully most of you have this already. If you don't panic. There's still time to get one. The time you really need it or you have to have it is, of course, before you get on that plane, right? That's the absolute latest you need to have your passport. You can still apply for the program if you don't have it yet. I know there's a questionnaire in the application asking you to fill that out, but we can basically disable that for you so you can proceed with the application, talk about that in a little bit. But you need a passport at some point before you go to Prague. And so this estimate here of 145 is what it costs if you need to get one, or roughly if you need to renew one. I assume most people going on this program aren't old enough yet to renew one. So if you need one, that's kind of roughly what you would pay. But if you have one, you don't need this, obviously, but this is just for folks who need to get one. Now, last two items, personal expenses and textbook and supplies. Now, textbook and supplies, probably self-explanatory. As college students, you probably have heard and you probably will get used to really quick, textbooks being quite expensive every semester. I remember as a college student having to shell out a bunch of money for textbooks, new editions of textbooks, and it's not cheap. Same case here. You can expect to pay for your supplies and textbooks for your classes. But having said that, we do, and our faculty are cognizant of trying to make these things available online, so digital resources wherever possible. So they're conscious of that and won't sort of drive up your costs by forcing you to buy their 8th edition of their new textbook. So that's, but we do want to make sure that you're aware of that to factor some money for the supplies and textbooks, just like you're going to be doing for every semester in college. Finally, personal expenses. What do we mean by this? This is sort of the lazy catch-all term for everything else. And so when you're in Prague, when you're living, you need, new toothpaste, new stick of deodorant, some shampoo. You need to get gifts from mom and dad, hopefully, and brother and sister coming back home. So you just want to really allocate for sort of these expenses that just come with a living that aren't really nicely captured in these other categories. So we find this, again, as an estimate, but a reliable one of what a student may, on average, pay for all those other things throughout the course of a semester in Prague. So we come, alas, to that total I gave her earlier, $15,745. And if you can't see it, it's at the very bottom of that slide. But that's roughly what the estimate is for this program, everything factored in. Okay. Now, what I want to do next is, the bulk of that is that program cost. So let's look at what that entails. So we have here, and I'm not going to read every one of these. You can see in your own what that is, but we have what's included and what's not included. So the biggest part of the program cost is the tuition and the housing. And so all the tuition expenses for the courses you're taking that we looked at earlier, it's all built in already into the program cost, okay? So no separate tuition charge if you're on this program in the fall. The next biggest thing is the housing. And so that's all built into it as well, the housing that Maggie spoke about earlier. Some other things included that are noteworthy. You're on an international health insurance plan. We enroll you automatically. There's nothing you need to go seek out and do for that, but we will enroll you in that, and that's included as well. The excursions Maggie discussed, the ones that are part of the program, we have that included in this as well, because it's going to cost to get you to those places when you're staying in those places. Sometimes we have group meals, so that's all built into this as well. And you can see the rest of it that's included in that cost. But the big things, again, tuition and housing. What's not included, I already discussed: the airfare, the meals, personal expenses, and those things we already talked about. Before I leave the slide, I didn't talk about a visa, and that's because the visa for most of you is not going to be needed. And if you're a U.S. citizen, if you're a U.S. passport holder, you do not need to worry about a visa to enter the Czech Republic or the Schengen zone. And the Schengen zone is roughly the EU, not exactly, but roughly. So for most of you, we don't have to worry about applying for a visa. There are a few countries, though, that are required for short-term stays, required to get a visa. Again, this is never really an issue for any Connect students, but if you're a non-US citizen and you're applying and you're curious about this, you can always reach out to us and we can figure that out for you. But a visa is not going to be required for most, if not all of you. Now, what I want to say real quick too is because of that, because you won't have a visa, you are allowed to stay in the Czech Republic and the Schengen zone. Again, this is roughly the EU, for a period of up to 90 days, okay? Up to 90 days. So this program, if you did the math, or I may have mentioned it, this is 84 days, right? So that gives you 6 days to basically stay outside of those program dates. So if you're thinking, I want to travel, I want to stay behind and travel a bit, just keep that 90-day cap in mind. That is something you really want to take seriously. You don't want to exceed that because you wouldn't be legally allowed to stay past 90 days. And that's why, as we heard from our wonderful alums, you hear their travel experiences, traveling to 4 countries to 10 countries. you have that opportunity throughout the program. So definitely take advantage of that if you're thinking about traveling. We don't have classes on Fridays for the most part, and for that reason, to give you opportunities to go visit. And once you're in Europe, you're in Prague, you're in Central Europe, you're in really the heart of it. You can easily get to lots of other European countries on a weekend, ample time, you know. So take advantage of that, because again, you won't have a lot of time after the program to do that, because again, that 90-day cap. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions, we can address those in the Q&A or during the application process at some point. But hopefully that did make some sense there. All right, so just a few last things about the money topic. So scholarships and funding. There are some opportunities for funding available to you. However, as non-degree seeking students, the NDS I mentioned earlier, you're not eligible, unfortunately, for state or federal financial aid. So you wouldn't be able to use, of course, that towards this program. But we do still have some scholarships possibly available. The NC State European Center offers need-based scholarships, and also we have one social media scholarship that we award every year too. So there's a scholarship application process we have separately. You can find that on our webpage. It's a simple Google form that walks you through those steps. If you're interested in that, highly encourage you to just apply. It doesn't hurt to do it, but you want to apply by the deadline of April 24th. All right. So that's NC State European Center scholarships. There's other sources potentially of funding for you. There's Veteran Affairs scholarships, and of course private loans and things like that. But the key thing is, of course, as NDS students, you're not eligible for state and financial funding. All right. So just want to briefly mention that, just so you're aware. We can always talk about that a bit more later too. Now, just to wrap up my part here with the application details. And so the way to apply for this program, some of you may have started one already, great. If you haven't, it's really easy. Just go to our webpage, the Prague Connect webpage. You'll see a red apply button. Just click that and it'll guide you through the steps. It takes you to an online platform called Pack Abroad, and you'll see all the items that need to be submitted for the application. Process is pretty much online. You won't need to come in physically really to see us unless you want to, but it's all entirely online. Now, some of those items are questionnaires. Some of those items are simply things to read and sign, and do read those. Some of those items are informational. And so when you get on there and you see, well, there's like over a dozen of items, this is huge. Don't worry, don't be intimidated. A lot of those things can be done pretty quickly. The core of the application, though, is actually a video that you produce. The detailed instructions are found in the application, but the short of it is you would produce a video no more than 3 minutes long, introducing yourself, explaining your motivation, and answering a question prompt. So do look at those instructions carefully. This should be something don't stress about, just be excited about. We're excited to kind of meet you that way. But this gives us information about you and helps us to factor that into the application process. So again, it's all online. You can get there through our webpage. Do be aware that we have 2 deadlines for the application. The first one is what we call early action. This is just like an early priority decision deadline. That's April 24th. All right. So if you do want to be considered early, and I would encourage that because this is generally a program that gets a lot of applicants, more than we can take, April 24th is when you want to get your application in. There's still time if you don't get it in by then. Our regular deadline is May 15th. We'll still take those. But again, since we do have a limited capacity, 36 to 48 students, we do prioritize early applicants. Okay. We will send decisions. You can see there no more than 5 days after the deadlines. And then we just go from there. There is a period of time that you can think about that decision. If you've been accepted, it's called a commitment period. Usually it's a 2-week period, and you can have that time to decide, talk with your parents, and figure that out. So you don't have to tell us right away that you get a decision, but just be aware you do have a period of time. Okay, I'm gonna just wrap up. We just talked about this here. Again, key deadlines, April 24th, and then the latest is May 15th. We're gonna have, once we have our group together, and this obviously will take time to figure out, but eventually we'll be meeting in person on August 8th. So just keep that in mind. It's a Thursday. It takes place on campus here in Raleigh. It's really exciting. Parents are invited, encouraged to come, not required, but encouraged. It's always great to see you. And you come and we give a day of pre-departure orientation. Maggie and I will be there, and you'll get to meet some staff, and we'll get to give you lots of information to get you excited and informed and prepared for your departure to Prague later that month. Okay, so I want to make sure we have enough time to hear more from our alums. So I'm going to wrap it up there and pass it over to Maggie.
Yeah, so I'm aware of time, but I want to take about 5 minutes or so for our alums to just share a little bit more about their experiences, hopefully answer some questions that you might have or things that you're wanting to know. So alums, the first question I want to ask is, why did you choose the study abroad, the Prague Connect program?
I can go ahead and start. So I was honestly hesitant when I first kind of saw this as an option. But my mom really pushed me into this, and I'm so grateful for it because I got to travel the world, which is something I personally don't think I'll ever be able to do again. And it's amazing. You get to meet so many new people, so many different cultures. It's really eye-opening to how big the world is when you've just been stuck in North Carolina for so long. So it's a great experience, a great way to meet different people and explore the world.
Okay, I'll go ahead next. So for me, it was, I'm Spring Connect. Do I want to do community college or take a chance with study abroad? And I had always wanted to travel to Europe. I never had before. And it was really such a great opportunity. It was very scary applying to that at first because it felt like such a big decision, but I just pushed myself into it, and it was honestly one of the best decisions that I've made.
Yeah, I definitely agree with both of them. It is probably going to be the best decision you'll ever make if you do get into this program. It's so worth it. Um, the same thing. I was either going to go to another redacted college, or I had this opportunity come by and I wanted to take it really badly because it is probably going to be really hard to study abroad depending on your pathway in university and your future in general. So I think like as a freshman, you don't get these types of opportunities anywhere else, really. And if you do like traveling, or if you do want to travel, it's really worth it. Again, you get a new cultural experience. Um, as Jenna also mentioned, you get to experience like a lot of the world. And because yeah, being stuck in the same state or city wherever you're from it can get a little bit boring. So this is like a really eye-opening experience, and it's fun. You get to meet a lot of new people, and you are also with NC State students still, so you're not alone in that sense either.
Wow, that's great. So speaking, y'all talked a lot about experience and how it was a great opportunity, but with those usually come some challenges. So what were maybe some of the biggest, or one or two challenges that you faced, not just with this program, but just kind of studying abroad in general?
I can go. First thing is that I did not get a cell phone plan before the program started. Usually with some phone plans here, you can get an international plan, but just because ours was too expensive, so we were just like, maybe we can find something cheaper. There are cheaper options in Prague. I did a Vodafone one, and it was under the student discount, so it was like really affordable. Plus, I had more gigs than necessary. But yeah, before coming to Prague, figure out your cell phone plan. If not, research beforehand or do it like ASAP when you get there, because I did not call my parents for several hours after I reached, so they had no way of tracking me either. So it was a little bit, I think it's gonna be a little bit harsher on the parents at first, but yeah, those first few days you'll already be with your friends, with your classmates and stuff. But yeah, if you can get that phone plan earlier ahead, do that.
Okay, I can go ahead next. So, of course, there were a few physical challenges, but the largest ones for me were mental. Just getting rid of those mental blocks and being like, I'm going here and I can either make the best of it or be stuck in my head. Really, when it set in that I was actually in a foreign country, it never really felt real. I mean, I had never traveled outside of America, And to be the foreigner for the first time was definitely a very different experience, and it was hard. And trying to learn the language and sounding silly talking to people in Czech. It'll get at you a little bit, but just remembering to like stay strong and that you're here to experience things, good and bad. But yeah, that was probably the hardest thing for me.
One of the harder things for me was kind of finding things and kind of getting myself accustomed to the area. So I had like a bunch of things that I had to write down as like helpful things for me. I do suggest when you go, bring seasoning, because some seasonings that you have here are not in the Czech Republic. I really missed garlic salt, so I had to make my own. Another thing I had issues with was my passport. I kind of procrastinated, and that is the worst thing to do when it comes to stuff as important as your passport. Don't procrastinate any of that. And I also left early. So the day that I left to go back home was the 90th day. So I had some issues scheduling that on my end. So make sure you really do pay attention to when you're going and when you're leaving. And I had the VA benefits. So make sure you're putting in all of your proper documentation. So everything goes well when getting ready to leave.
Yeah, those are great, very real challenges. And like Jenna mentioned, there's both mental and physical, and students will experience all of that. That is something, like I mentioned earlier, that we do try to talk about in orientation, but is something that we definitely want students to be open about and have those experiences. Again, I'm aware of time, so I'll cut our Q&A question or our prompted question short so that we can get to some of the Q&A. I see we've got a lot in the chat as well. So wanted to, if you want to go to the next slide, just before we get to that, just kind of a final plug and on behalf of our communication specialist, Anael, to connect with us if you haven't already. We're on Instagram, NC State Prague. If you want to follow us, if you haven't already, that's a great way to kind of get some insight, see student spotlights, hear more students talk about their experiences, and kind of get some behind the scenes, also to stay up to date with the events that are going on. Same thing goes with Facebook. If you're still on Facebook, pretty much all the content that we post on Instagram will be translated over there as well. And then unofficially, we do have a TikTok. If you're on TikTok abroad in Prague, so if you want to get some glimpses at housing or commutes and stuff like that, we're available there. And then lastly, like Alex mentioned, we have the Prague Connect page that should hopefully answer a lot of your questions. But if you need to reach out to us for any reason or have any questions, you could do so at our general email account there at ncstateprague@ncscu.edu.
Great, thanks, Maggie. Yeah, and just we're out of time. We got about 6 minutes. I want to just get some questions in the chat that have been coming in, and I want to apologize from the outset. I won't be able to get to all of them, and I apologize. I'm going to have to cherry pick a little bit. Some of these things we may have touched upon already. Some of these things we can touch upon at a later time. And if we don't get your question, definitely reach out to us in that email address that Maggie had just mentioned. So that's something we want to be in touch with you. We want to answer those. But I want to address there's a couple questions about acceptance rate. So you may be curious about what are your chances of getting in. Again, this is a program we've been running for about 7 years, and it really sort of depends on what year we're talking about. Probably the most useful set of data is from last year, and I'd say over 50% that applied got accepted. Now, I want to just mention some caveats here. It's all going to be dependent, of course, on how many applications we get. Of course, that's sort of obvious. So the rate is kind of hard to estimate, but just keep in mind it's a 36 to 48 is sort of our program capacity. Last year we took 36, and it seems that we're just sort of getting more applications every year. I will tell you that so far we've had 41 applications that have been opened. Doesn't mean that they've been completed or doesn't mean they'll even complete in the end, but that's sort of what we've seen in the 7 or 8 days that we've opened the application. So there's still a little under 3 weeks to the first application deadline, the priority deadline. It may be the situation where we've kind of hit the capacity at that point. So we don't know. I wish I could kind of give that a better figure, but just know that it's a good acceptance rate. And the best thing you can do kind of is to focus on what you can control, right? And that is basically completing the application in time. That's answering the questions in the various questionnaires to the best of your ability. You don't need to worry about what's the right answer. You just need to be, I'd say, just honest and thorough. Right enough where it just there's usually word limits. And the video, make sure in the video you put some time into it, put some thought into it. Those instructions are very detailed. I won't go into them now, but just make sure that you answer those prompts, answer what we're asking. Just follow the instructions closely because we do look at those and we do weigh those pretty heavily. But yeah, so good chance of being accepted. It's just going to depend, of course, on how many applications we get, but 36 to 48 is what we can take for the program. Yeah, and so related to that, what we do is, as I mentioned, 3 tracks. So the program has track 1, track 2, track 3. Whatever the final number is, we pretty much will divide that accordingly. We try to have maybe 12 students per track. And so if we do have 36 students, that's 12 per track. If we end up with 48 students, we just double up on one of those tracks. So it's going to sort of be based on what you tell us is your preferences, and eventually how many students that we are able to accept. Now, I also want to mention, this is sometimes a question. You do not have to have confirmed your enrollment with NC State University in order to apply. You may be in a situation where you're weighing your options. You don't know if you're going to ultimately accept admission for spring to NC State, but you want to at least get started on a spring or Prague Connect application for that April 24th deadline. You can apply without being sure that you're going to confirm. Obviously, that's okay, but obviously you need to have confirmed before you're able to participate in the program. So that's something you can kind of figure and work out later, but you can still get that application started. Now, we're going to be, and I don't want to forget to kind of plug this, but if you're going to be attending NC State, the Experience NC State event this Saturday at Tally Student Union, we will be, Maggie and myself, we will be there as well. So we're going to be hosting or doing sessions at the breakout session. It's called NC State Study Abroad Office. It's just going to be us, and we're going to be talking about the Connect program again. So if you're there and you want to hear more from us, we'll touch upon some of the same things that we talked about. We'll also be available in person for questions if you want to meet us. So we'll be there, and that takes place this Saturday. Our sessions will be there from 9:55 for breakout session 1, and we do breakout session 2 and breakout session 3. We'll be doing the same thing. So if you want to meet us there and ask some of your questions there. Yeah, so there's a lot of questions, folks, in the chat, and I'm so sorry we can't get to them just in the interest of time. A lot of these are really good, and I hope you do avail yourself of that email address. We are happy to answer those in the email. Happy to talk to you at some point, maybe this weekend. This is really great. We want to thank you for joining us, and again, sorry if we can't get to your question, but hopefully you'll hear from us soon. We'll hear more from you later. Hopefully this was informative. We will send out a recording of this to those who registered, and I believe we will post it on YouTube as well. So again, thank you for being here. We're going to have to just stop the recording and cut off the official part of the presentation. Since it is 7, we want to respect your time. We'll try to hang it back a little bit for a few minutes if you want to stick behind and ask us questions, but we're going to go ahead and close and stop the recording now.